How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about Pennyworth, Season 1. This is from 2019, and originally aired on Epix, I believe, but as of the time of recording, you can watch this on HBO Max now. This show is created by Bruno Heller and stars Jack Bannon, Aldridge, and Emma Paetz, and is of course based on DC Comics characters created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger. Now, this show, I want to say going in, I watch a lot of DC stuff, especially Batman stuff, be it the movies or the TV. I watched all of Gotham. So yeah, I really do like Batman. He's easily my favorite superhero. He's really cool. Now, when I first saw the ads for this, I thought, boy, that's kind of weird doing a spin-off series with Alfred Pennyworth. You know, you really wouldn't think that they would do something like that, but, you know, an odd character to pull a whole show with. But I thought, okay, maybe that might be interesting. But I didn't have Epix at the time, so I missed the first few seasons of the show. I think 2 are out right now and 3 is coming. But I was browsing through HBO Max, I saw it was there, and I thought, hey, I haven't watched this before, it could be good, why not give it a shot? And I'm glad I did. You know, I didn't think that this show would be that great going into it, but then having watched a few episodes, this is actually a pretty surprising series, you know? I thought it would be Thomas Wayne and Alfred Pennyworth going on a few adventures and doing kind of a case of the week or something. But there's a lot more to it. There is little bits of that, but it's definitely an Alfred-centered story where Alfred is kind of this young man, you know, starting to try to start a life of his own in a very turbulent political climate. England's literally right on the verge of a civil war, and crime is running rampant, and he's trying to carve out a life for himself amidst all this. And a whole lot of stuff is going on. Alfred is clearly the main character, but there are several other leads in this show, and everyone has their own agenda, and there's a whole bunch of backstabbing, betrayal, keeping track on whose side, but who kind of likes this person, and there's a whole big web of stuff going on here. And, you know, Alfred, he's starting up a security business, and he's independent, and various people will, you know, want to get him to do something or make an alliance with this, and he has to figure out where he stands in this really big and crazy world. And there's a lot more to this show than you'd think. I mentioned Gotham earlier. If you guys like Gotham, you'll probably like this. Gotham was another one of those shows with a bunch of characters all backstabbing and betraying each other. Now, this doesn't go as comic booky as Gotham did, and actually that is one of the things with this show, is it's about Alfred Pennyworth as well as Thomas and Martha show up, but it really could be its own thing. Like, even if it didn't have the Batman IP with it, this show really could have stood on its own. And I mean, yeah, I do want to see cool Batman stuff happen, and you do get some of that. Obviously, in this show, we see Thomas and Martha Wayne meet each other, and you get things like, you know, Alfred's father is a butler, so that's why how he knows how to do all the butler stuff. And you do get even one scene where someone's talking to Alfred, and he disappears, just like Batman would do later. So you can see how this version of Alfred, you see how he would have like no problem training someone to be Batman, and you can see, you know, what a resource he'd be for Bruce later on. But there's not super big connections. The Joker doesn't show up, nothing like that. It really could have stood on its own. It makes it interesting that it's Batman, and I could always go for more Batman stuff, but this really does a good job of being its own thing too, you know? And it is a really cool 1960s England crime political thriller type thing. A lot is going on in this show, and for, you know, I thought it would be, you know, so-so adventures with a tie-in character that's not the biggest name, but boy, there's a lot going on with the Pennyworth show. Anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the plot. I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, but I want you guys to make sure you have a basic idea of what this show's about, and I'll be analyzing a bit of it, but I'll be avoiding the spoilers at the end. Anyway, Alfred. We first meet Alfred. He's been in the military since he was 16, and he's just now getting out and trying to build a life of his own. So he's been through a whole lot already before the series even starts, fighting in wars for years, a whole lot of his life. 16, go out to war, and finally just now come back, and he has to deal with a lot of PTSD and trauma from that. But he's setting up his own security company. He calls it a security company, but he gets, drug on all these different kind of jobs, like, find someone, or, be a bounty hunter for like an episode, or we're going to do this thing, make sure nothing goes wrong, be our bodyguard here, So there's a lot of different jobs, and the show does a good job with making it semi-episodic, where like a job will just be like one episode, but it definitely ties into the overall plot. But he's carving out a name for himself, and this is not the easiest world to do this in. Like I said, England is on the verge of a civil war. There's two sides, the Raven Society, which is a group of fascist people, which are clearly going to be the show's main antagonist. But there's also the No Name League, which is a group of freedom fighters where Thomas and Martha Wayne are. Martha is young and idealist, and Thomas is older, a little more cynical. He's a billionaire, but why is he really there? We'll figure that out later on. And you think, okay, these are the side that's fighting the bad guys. They're the good guys, right? That's not 100% true. This show is not completely black and white, and there definitely is corruption on this side as well. And then, of course, you get things like the Queen and the Prime Minister. They're there, as well as various crime groups are there as well. So, yeah, two big sides and all the other people in this world interacting and figuring out how to deal with this this chaos. Now, there's a bunch of backstabbing and betrayal, but Alfred does have his mates, his friends. They're these two guys that, came home from the war with him. They'd seen combat together. You get one of them that's more serious, one of them that's, more jokey and liable to get into trouble. But they'll follow Alfred to the ends of the earth. They're like brothers to him. And it really is something to see loyalty in a show where everybody's backstabbing and betraying, So you really do like that Alfred's got his mates. And then, of course, he meets a girl, a young dancer, Esme, and he loves her, but he's part of this big, crazy world, and she definitely just wants to live a peaceful life, and he's worried about dragging her into that. I mean, one of the first stories is she gets kidnapped, and he has to get her back, and you can tell, like, she shouldn't be in this world. What's Alfred going to do about that? So kind of an interesting character there. And a whole lot of other stuff happens, a whole lot of little side plots and other characters, There's the leader of the Raven Society, in the beginning of the show, he gets kidnapped and tortured by the Prime Minister, and he has to dig his way out of the dirt and reestablish his claim as the leader of this organization. There's another girl who's got a really thick English country accent, and she's part of the Raven Society. She's evil, but she kind of starts to consider herself Esme's friend, and it's like, okay, she's definitely an antagonist, but she considers herself your girlfriend's friend. She's not always going to be 100% evil to you all the time. And then there's like this crime boss who's done in the style of Jack the Ripper. I don't think he's supposed to actually be Jack the Ripper, but he's kind of done in the Jack the Ripper style. and, Alfred has to deal with this big crime boss. Something's going on in that world. You're going to have to talk to this guy, and he's forced to make various compromising deals with him. But again, not 100% black and white. There's one point later in the show where Alfred and the Jack the Ripper character become jogging buddies for a bit, which kind of comes out of nowhere, but does pull into a really interesting story. So I definitely like that. And there is a plot later on involving this cult, which really doesn't fit 100% and isn't the best, but it does show that this show can do a whole bunch of various different things and isn't confined to one corner. Also, this show is very, very British. You worry DC, Warner Brothers, an American company, doing a British show. Is it really going to feel British? But yes, it does. Very, very British. A lot of the characters have thick accents. You can still understand them, but a definite British accent. And they'll say things like, all the time they'll go, "Oh, can you put the kettle on?" Or they'll refer to people as love a lot. Or, someone gets stabbed and they look at the knife and go, would you get a load of that? Stuff like that. And there's even one scene towards the end where someone uses the word collywobbles. And I'm like, that's a weird British word I've never heard before. But yeah, very thick 60s British tone. If you guys like that, that's definitely in here. Now, the show is technically set in the 60s. It's kind of an abstract 60s. They reference putting that America is planning on putting a man on the moon, which would mean this is pre-1969. But then there's live music in a club, and the band's playing Black Sabbath's Paranoid, and that was from 1970, so we're a little bit out of order already. But then when they start using real historical figures, you're like, wait, were they born yet? Were they still around? And then there's things like, broadcasting, hanging a live public execution on TV. Was that really going on in the 1960s? So yeah, the time frame is a little weird, and I would really like to see like a historian reacting to season 1 of Pennyworth, and I would really like to know just how much they're playing with and moving around. But overall, England was never really on the verge of a civil war, or at least not as extreme as this show was, so they're playing with time a little bit anyway. So I say it definitely will bug some people, but I didn't mind that time. They're playing with time a little fast and loose here, But anyway, overall, I like the show a lot more than I thought I would. I was like, okay, it's Alfred Pennyworth, it's a side character, it's not really a Batman show. But then you get pulled in with all these fast-moving plots, tons of interesting characters, and really a whole lot happening. Like even Alfred's parents, who aren't the biggest characters in the show, you really get to know his parents and his relationship with them even. So yeah, a whole lot goes on, very interesting. I do have to say, if you are fans of Gotham, it doesn't go as comic booky, but several times it does go pretty extreme and over the top. And if you like that wide world, several characters, backstabbing, betrayal, and crime, which was all very prevalent in Gotham, I would say definitely check this out. I don't think the two are officially I don't think Pennyworth is officially a prequel to Gotham, but it really should be. The two shows really do have, it's a similar feel, but a different flavor, and I definitely would recommend this to Gotham fans. But yeah, it turned out to be a pleasant surprise. I didn't think I would like the show as much as I did, but it turned out to be pretty fun, and I'm glad I watched it. I'll get the Season 2 review out pretty soon, and we'll see what happens in there. But anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. If you guys want to see more, you can click there and see more. This should be my TV shows playlist where you can see what other TV shows I've been talking about. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. TV show playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.